For centuries, mystics and elders have tried to discover the meaning of the universe and how it all works together. And the answer lies in a little bit of physics, a little bit of anatomy, a little bit of physiology, a little bit of theology. And it's between all these factors that we can take the science and spirituality and comprise a system together that understands how it all works. And that is how the human body operates and actually how we heal. So we take it back to Genesis 1, let there be light. And in Genesis, it says God is two things. He is love and he is light. And through this, understanding that God is love and light, we understand the physics of how light operates and how light heals and how God heals through our thoughts and beliefs. So light is crucial. We have to understand that there's an argument between creation versus evolution. The answer is it is both. So when we look at light, light drives biology. 4.5 billion years ago, we had hydrogen in our environment. There was a vast space. And what happened is through light being a magnetic field, it took atoms and comprised them together to form our Earth with an iron core. And in that environment, it was primarily hydrogen, but that iron core formed a magnetic field. Now, that magnetic field around our Earth is called the ionosphere, and the ionosphere changes the light that passes through it. It's called the photoelectric effect. So this photoelectric effect changes the wavelength of the light that's emitted through that ionosphere, and it allowed for evolution to occur. It allowed for prokaryotic life that used hydrogen to convert into eukaryotic life, multicellular organisms. Now, that took a protein, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen, and allowed that to take copper and bind it to iron to make hemoglobin. This is where prokaryotic life came about. And the cell contains an organelle called the mitochondria. The mitochondria is what utilizes oxygen. It basically allows oxygen to convert to CO2. And this all deals with the electrons. So your mitochondria is the key to health. It is the key to light. It's the key to love and light. And so if you can't move oxygen to carbon dioxide efficiently, we get reactive oxygen species that lead to cellular death. And that's where chronic illness comes from. But we have to understand that's the science of kind of how we evolved. But then we go back into theology, and there were these beings called the Nephilim, right? And the Nephilim, we also know them as the Anunnaki. Well, the Nephilim came here to Earth with these eukaryotic cells, and they basically started playing around with the Earth and the environment and doing experiments, and they created a species. They basically spliced the second genome, and when they spliced the second genome, and you can look this up, you can go to University of Washington and look this up, but basically they took the second genome and they spliced it, and there's this jump in evolution that's like a 1 in 400 million chance of even happening. So it's less than 1% chance of this ever happening naturally. But basically that jump allowed for life, such as our closest relative, chimpanzees, to become human. That's where our humanness comes from. So these Anunnaki are in the Bible called the Nephilim. The Nephilim then started creating these humans. And we always hear about the giants in the Bible. And the giants in the Bible, they existed because of the Elohim. The Elohim were the ones that created this. And then the Nephilim were the byproduct from splicing this DNA with the chimpanzees. So this is our closest relative. And when this gene was developed, this splice happened, or the human being was made, it was designed in a certain fashion that it could be programmed. So it could be docile and obedient. And this docile and obedience that occurs is because you have been developed with these mirror neurons. The second genome deals with your mirror neurons. Now, the mirror neurons are really kind of cool because it means that you have a really deep, profound impact to influence the world around you. It means you can program the world around you. And these mirror neurons press on the supersubstantia nigra. The supersubstantia nigra is a part of the brain that deals with dopamine, deals with oxytocin. And so Oxytocin helps us connect. Dopamine, dopamine is our addiction. It gives us our drive. So dopamine, when it's pressed on, stimulates melanin. Now, melanin is a protein in our bodies that absorbs light. And as melanin absorbs light, that is the light of God. Remember, God is love and light. And then that affects our prefrontal cortex and our personality. So the thoughts and beliefs that you have that you push on society actually program society. Now, what's wild about this is that our thoughts and beliefs warp the time-space continuum. So if our thoughts and beliefs warp the time-space continuum, you have to understand that you're receiving light from God in a magnetic field, because that's what light is. And the magnetic field of light is received by you, and your proteins in your body, melanin, is a semiconductor. Now, DNA is a semiconductor as well. So as we receive the light from God, it's emitted outside of us. So our thoughts and beliefs change the wavelength and amplitude of light, because you also have an iron core, hemoglobin, utilizing oxygen, that basically transforms the wavelength and the light, the amplitude and the wavelength of light that's emitted outside of you. So in other words, what happens is this wavelength and light, through your thoughts and beliefs, changes the magnetic field that's emitted outside of you, taking the atoms and forming together just like the Earth was formed. Same physical phenomenon that happened through physics with the creation of the Earth. So now we have these groups in society that have happened, such as the Vatican or Masonic groups or World Economic Forum, and they know this knowledge. They know it on a deep core. So we go back to what's happening in society. We have a culture war. And I don't think society was really ever meant to have social media and see what's going on. And, we all think we know what's best. But the reality is what does God tell us? If you love me, you will follow my commandments. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Leave people the fuck alone. Let them live their life as they choose. Have God in your heart. Have light in your heart. And just be. Influence the people you're supposed to influence. Make the difference in the world you're supposed to make. Just exist, be, because when you resist the flow of life, that's when you die. Jesus said, if you ignore what is within you, it will destroy you. If you embrace within you, it will heal you. So, in all this, understand that we go back to World War II, and we brought over all these Nazi scientists during Operation Paperclip. Von Braun was one of those scientists, and they did all kinds of crazy experiments. And one of them is they were cutting the skull off of chimpanzees and monkeys, and they were electrocuting or sending electrical signals to the brain to try to mind control people. This was called MK Ultra. And what they discovered, it was through wavelengths of light, it's a magnetic field, and EMFs, that they could lower their dopamine and make them docile and obedient, and they could mind control the average person. So then they came out with Operation Mockingbird, and they put out news, and they realized that they can lower dopamine levels. It presses on the melanin that affects the prefrontal cortex, which is your personality. And guess what? You're subjective to their mass programming. So now you have this mass programming, and we can get people to abide by the rules to enrich the elite. You see what's going on? It's a whole system here. It's meant to lower your dopamine, making you subservient to doing that. So the World Economic Forum wants us to eat bugs, implant chips in our brains, and just run around serving them like they are God. So they know this knowledge. It's been passed down. They basically got it from the Anunnaki and Thoth and the Bible, who taught Jesus, is where a lot of this information came from. But they're using it for nefarious reasons. See, there's a difference. You can take this knowledge, this information, and you can spread the light and love of God, or you could take this knowledge and brainwash the people to serve you as if you are God. And so we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and we are here to have a journey of awakening our soul to having this wide band of consciousness and awareness that occurs. Now, there has to be good and there has to be evil, right? The soul wouldn't awaken. Nobody does anything without a gun to their head. So they're in duality. They wouldn't appreciate light if there was no darkness. You wouldn't appreciate warmth if there wasn't cold. You wouldn't appreciate love if there wasn't a narcissistic relationship. So there truthfully must be this dualism in this universe, and it is created by God, and it's all allowed by God to awaken the soul. But you have a choice to choose on what path you would love to take. And what I have done as a healer is I've taken this knowledge that's been passed down through many, many years and taken theology and physics and anatomy and physiology and put it together in a system that actually heals people, that actually makes people aware that they don't need these stupid biohacks. They don't need supplements. They don't need NAD drips. They don't need methylene blue. They don't need stem cells. Your body produces stem cells, for God's sake. The body produces stem cells because you have to realize that the kidney meridian controls the bone marrow. And the bone marrow produces stem cells. And the kidney meridian deals with emotions of fear, dread, and doom. So if you live in a place of fear, dread, and doom, you have to understand the Bible verse. And it says, there is no fear in love, for perfect love casts out fear. So if you have fear, you have not perfected love. So in other words, the fear resists the flow of life. It blunts you on your spiritual journey. And God tells us in Peter 4:10, use your spiritual gifts to be stewards of God's good grace. But when you live in fear and you worry about what other people think because you've been programmed because of the blue light and EMFs in the environment, and you're subject to what you've been told and you've been dumbed down, not realizing there's infinite potential in you, and there's 300 million trilovolts of electricity coursing through your body or your meridians, then all of a sudden you don't produce the stem cells and you die. You make lots of reactive oxygen species. So you have a choice in life. You know, you can be the good guy or you can be the bad guy. You can be whatever end you choose. I'm not going to judge you for whatever you choose, but I know I'm choosing light and love. So as we have to understand, like, you have to actually receive the light too. You have to actually spend time in nature. You can't be in front of these screens constantly chasing money, living in hustle culture. You can't stay up late now going out and living a hedonistic lifestyle, chasing women and chasing guys in relationships and chasing egotistical things and houses and cars and materialism. That shit doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, enjoy life, have nice things, see the world, but at the sacrifice of your health, at the sacrifice of shrinking your gray matter in your brain so you can't process. The seventh genome, which was also developed by the Anunnaki or the Elohim, deals with the prefrontal cortex. That's why we're unique. It was developed that way. And it was developed that way so that we could have that ability to actually critically think, and we can actually awaken ourselves. So you don't want to fall into the trap of society, and that's why Jesus said, be that in the world, but not of the world, right? So we want to exist, but we don't want to subject ourselves by learning karmic lessons. And this is where I want to take this. This is what I want to explain to you guys. There's three things that everybody wants. And this is why I see everybody in my office. This is why I do NLP and hypnosis, getting to people's subconscious patterns that change the wavelength and the amplitude and the light that's emitted outside of them. So what I'm truthfully doing is I'm spreading the light of God, changing their cells' potentiation through love, and then allowing the electricity or the magnetic fields to resonate through their body so they can change the wavelength and the amplitude outside them and change atoms outside of them, because as you change the way you view the world you view changes. So I'm basically using NLP and hypnosis to get to the subconscious, and that's 98% of your thought. That's how reality's formed. That's how the melanin absorbs the light and is reflected outside of you. And we change that with our thoughts and beliefs. So we receive the light of God, and through love, it transforms the wavelength and the amplitude of light. Fear does as well. It just changes in a way that pulls in experiences that you don't want, and we call those tower moments. Your anxiety, your worry, your resentment, your fears, your sadness, your depression, those are all the things that are creating your life. It keeps you stuck. You want to seek nothing and track everything. Just exist and allow life to flow through you and learn lessons. More worry about becoming the individual through God. Let God guide you, and you're going to have the riches, you're going to have the health, and you're going to have the relationships that your soul's meant to have. You're going to pull those in through a magnetic field without having to force things, because the force, if you force life, you get forced back, and that burns you out. And that's when you die. That's when you're tired and you don't get the sleep and you don't eat the right foods. You're in hustle culture, and you have to impress your neighbor and show them things, and you have all this coveting of neighbor's things against the 10 commandments, right? What did Jesus say? If you love me, you'll follow my commandments. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Don't worry about other people's mission. Don't worry about other people's journey. Yours is yours. And your job is to attract the people in your life that are supposed to work together to do your mission. That might be alone. That might be with others. Don't worry about it. Let it just be. So I want to take this back to the relationship part because most people don't understand this aspect, and they look at the very first creation of man and Adam and Eve, and it's a metaphorical story. Yes, man, woman was created, but it's all created from God, but there was an evolutionary process that happened that was left out in the Bible. But this story, what it meant, and Adam and Eve, is that Adam and Eve existed and was created by God. And as they were created, he said, do not eat from the tree of knowledge. Now, the tree of knowledge was the apple that everybody talks about. And most people look at this and they say, man is superior to woman. Women should follow the man. Women screw everything up. Women are inherently evil. And that's not what he was saying. That's not what the Bible meant. What the Bible is actually saying is that there's a hierarchy. So Eve tempted Adam and he followed. He put Eve first. So as Adam put Eve first, he didn't put God in his aura or in his thoughts. And he overruled God, and there was karma to pay. So basically, women will destroy men if they don't put God first in the relationship. So God has to come first, and your mission has to come first. Then comes the female or the woman. Now, here's the deal with this. Many guys go through this, and then they get bitter. They don't get better, and they don't learn the lesson. They get bitter. And so they basically go meet a woman. They want to make her happy. She's chaotic. She's doing all these crazy things. They're trying to make her happy. She's unhappy. She's chasing materialistic things, and he's doing everything he can. And then he turns beta, and he doesn't seek God first, and he doesn't stay on his mission. He's more worried about her than everything else. So she sees him as a beta male, and her physiology changes. And as her physiology changes, she's a demon-like parasite in her brain that basically disrupts his entire life, blows up his life like an atom bomb. And she just destroys him, takes half his shit, and she doesn't remember a goddamn thing that he did for her. She doesn't remember anything that he did. She doesn't remember the trips. She doesn't remember the gifts. She doesn't remember the gestures. She doesn't remember her commitments, her promises. None of that matters. She has a demon parasite in her brain that's there to seek and destroy. And she will take half your stuff because the man didn't put God first. Now, on the other aspect, it's also women do this, and they see men and they want a relationship. They're trying to find love outside of them. And now what happens is the woman puts the man first. And that man is a fuckboy, and he's running around dicking down at Sally and Jill and Pam down the street, and she's all heartbroken and upset. Well, she didn't put God first either. She put the guy first, and she's chasing around this guy trying to control this guy. So it goes both directions. And it's not man or woman is bad. It's all the situation that life and karma are teaching you where you lack God in your life and you lack your mission. Because if you do that, and you attract people in your life on that mission, you will live a beautiful life. You won't condemn yourself to a sentence of hell because there is no heaven or hell. There is not a burning inferno. It's only heaven or hell in a state of mind. So in other words, when I'm going back and we have to look at the Gnostic text of Mary, and whatever your religious beliefs are, they are. But, you know, Jesus on the cross was very symbolic in the fact that he died on the cross, or the tribulation was related to Jesus Christ losing his ego, and the death and the resurrection was him losing all of his ignorance and being born again. So in other words, it's a symbolic nature, and you have to realize the journey is in the mind. There is no heaven or hell. It's you're creating it through your thoughts and beliefs that are pulling the atoms together. So people on now the other aspect, they want that's relationships, but let's go down money. People want money. Well, what happens is they chase this money. They don't go in nature. They don't drink the right water. They don't filter their water because we have a polluted environment. They don't get enough sleep. They don't exercise. They prioritize money over everything. And what happens is their health suffers. And the one person on the deathbed says, I wish I had my health back. They don't give a shit about the money. They just want to live. They want to be healthy. We never really die. We are souls that reincarnate. And the Bible reveals reincarnation in many verses. You will cast your bread upon water and receive it from after many days, right? I mean, it just never ends. There's a bunch of them. But the deal is that, and I think that's Ecclesiastes, but realizing that there's a balance to life, putting God first and then the relationships, or God first, and then your mission, which pays you, which allows the woman to stay in your life, or vice versa. The man or the woman has to put God first, and then her mission, and then the man. Realizing that in that scenario, it just works. You don't have to worry about your health. You don't have to worry about your money. You're connected with God. You're connected with nature. You're spending time in nature. You're obeying the 7 rules. You're drinking the right water. You're eating the right foods that grow out of the ground and roam the earth. You're actually have human movement and exercise and resistance training. Your mind is clear. It's connected. You're in nature. You can breathe fresh ions that are all around you, taking in the oxygen converted to carbon dioxide efficiently. Your posture, you need to find a guy like me that can fix it, that can put the bones in place in a position the muscles couldn't self-correct, because there's nobody else that does it unless you're doing advanced biostructural correction. And then there's your environment, which is your lighting electromagnetic fields, so you can't get derped down and lower your dopamine levels with the artificial blue 400 nanometer wavelength light. You have to go out in nature. You have to receive the light. Nobody's talking about the 200 nanometer wavelength light that produces long Dayson and that stimulates the suprachiasmatic nucleus in your brain, that sets the circadian clock, that basically also allows the stimulation of melatonin so that you can sleep. It's a normal cycle. You're not meant to be in these indoor climate-controlled facilities all day. It just doesn't work that way. Light drives biology. Light moves electrons. It's the magnetic fields. You have to electromagnetic fields through your Wi-Fi and cell phone devices, constantly having to stay connected to get self-value from other people. So those non-native electromagnetic fields are basically a huge problem. They are driving intracellular calcium and iron, pulling copper out, displacing the cell gradient. We call that the gluon force that holds those minerals in place. They keep the membrane potential in your mitochondria functioning so you can utilize oxygen and convert it to carbon dioxide. High CO2 levels shut down gene expression. It relaxes your DNA. But yet, you're hooked to the device. That's why they put the blue light in there. They could have made those devices with infrared. Big tech's in collusion with the Vatican and these Masonic groups to basically brainwash you, to disconnect you from God and make you think they're God, and chase materialism because they want you to buy their stuff. You've got to have their stuff. You've got to make it feel good. You got to be in the Ferrari. A guy's testosterone goes up like 200 points, but he buys an expensive car because he feels good about himself. But why didn't you feel good about yourself in the goddamn first place? I don't understand. You're a child of God. Why do you need a Ferrari to make you feel good? If you can afford it, do it. But why do you got to chase the damn thing? Just do God's work and let it come into your life, and it's meant to be, it'll be. It's insane. You're so much more than that. Why is your value based on things? But that's what I'm doing when I do NLP and getting the subconscious mind, the program that happened in childhood and epigenetic and the lineage. And it's just, that's where the belief system lies and why your reality sucks. You're too focused on the anxiety and the worry and the fears and the doubts. You're not focused on God and how powerful you are. When I put in someone in hypnosis and their head goes down and they go out and I whisper in their ear and I tell them who they are and how they should feel, they wake up and their eyes change. There's a glimmer in their eyes. They're a different person because I've reprogrammed their subconscious mind. They're a different human being in that matter. It's amazing to watch the light of God and the love. The love is the thing that changes the cell's potentiation, and love's emitted through your heart, and mind-heart coherence is exactly the experience that you want to live your life in, because that's where magic happens in that 0.1 hertz frequency of mind-heart coherence. You have to receive the light through love to emit it in a frequency that gets the ego fulfilled. The ego is one of these things where it'll lead you down the wrong path. But if you don't worry about the ego and the things you want, you just be and work on becoming the individual, the person that's supposed to walk through the door, putting God first, everything happens naturally and unfolds. You arrive at the destination. You didn't worry about the destination. You knew where you were going to go, but it just happened for you. It wasn't stressful. It didn't happen. It could be 10 years. It could be 3 years. It could be 20 years. Who gives a shit? Don't compare yourself to the neighbor. Your value is not based upon a competition, right? Your soul's meant to experience certain things and accept them and move through them with grace. It's through gratitude, saying thank you for the pain, fears, and challenges of life that you got to understand what gratitude is. Gratitude is love in action. So it's through gratitude you actually transmute and stop the karmic cycle of tower events, achieving the ego's desires. So live life through your heart and just experience it as what it is. Nobody's supposed to be in your life forever, or maybe they are. But if they are, allow it. If they're not, let it go free. Don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. Be single, be married, be in monogamous relationships, be in polygamy. It doesn't matter. Like, you're going to attract the right people. If that's cool. If you want to live in polygamy, I don't got a problem with it. I'm not going to force you to change. If everybody's contributing and nobody's lying to each other and everybody loves the situation, everybody's needs are met, it's cool. There's no right or wrongs in the universe. And that's the problem with culture, is they think they know what's right or wrong for individuals. There just isn't. There isn't. And it's going to affect you. The karma is going to get you. It's going to stop the flow of electrons. Your judgment is the thing that's going to stop the flow of electrons, because it's disapproval and dislike. So just realize there's so much power within you, and you can heal the world and you can heal yourself. And the same mirror neurons that are being influenced by the blue light and the DARPA project, you can transmute that. You can change that energy. You can receive the light of God and you can emit it outside of you, and you can heal.